Hello, my beautiful friends. I am feeling a lot of warmth and love about this upcoming full moon in Capricorn and the topics and the places that this full moon can take us. It took me a while to sit through and feel through this full moon and really get the full impact of what it is I'm trying to bring to you today. And that's partially because I'm finding it very intense to be on the internet right now. I think anybody who does work putting it out there in the world feels this at different times and in different ways. I'm finding it very sensitive right now and very vulnerable and challenging. But I came back time and time again to what it is I'm really trying to do here, why the work that I do is what it is. And I think this full moon really ties into so many of those themes. And so I'm happy to be sitting here with you today and to be exploring this archetype and the way that it's showing up for this particular full moon happening on July 13th. So let's get right into it. Essentially, this moon, if we were going to boil it down to one question, to me that question would be, what does love look like? What does love act like? What is love? And that seems like a very basic question, but actually on deeper examination, this can take us to some very, very interesting places. And I got inspired by something that Carl Jung once said, which is, where the will to power is paramount, love will be lacking. And this got me thinking about the practical application of love and how we love ourselves, as well as how that pours over into the world around us. So this is a full moon that, yes, I think is going to have us look at some of the larger lack of love that we see displayed in our cultures and in the world that we live in, as well as where we can start to harness our creative capacity to develop some new languages of love from within. So that's what we're going to cover today, and how to anchor into a really deep creative field that allows for there to be an anchoring and a stability that allows us to move through this world in meaning, no matter what waves are crashing all around us and what things are feeling very unstable. So let's get into it. The full moon, right, in Capricorn. Capricorn is tied to image of things like the father symbol. Saturn rules Capricorn. This is an energy that is very much about the deep anchoring we do and who we are. And I find that this is a really important energy to find peace with and to work with and to develop, because when we have this energy running in line with us, working with us, when we have developed this in ourselves, it gives us a sense of safety and security within our own system, and therefore in our movement through the world that is like nothing else. Because essentially this moon is about our seeking of the practical safety and security that we would like to feel both internally and externally. And no matter what aspects this full moon brings every year, it's a theme that will come up every time we hit into the Capricorn full moon. What does practical love, self-care, showing up, inner dialogue look like? You know, when we need that voice that says we are going to take care of this and this is going to be okay, what does that voice sound and look like to each of us? So that's the first, most basic level of this full moon. The big thing happening with this full moon as well, it is trining both Uranus and the North Node in Taurus. So this is really interesting because Capricorn is often associated with retaining and keeping things the same, maintaining things, maintaining your foundation. And of course, Uranus and the North Node, these energies are very invested in how we're changing things, how we are turning things on their head, how we are revolutionizing, how we are moving forward, how we are changing, how we are growing. Of course, these are both in earth signs right now too. So this is about the practical application of how we show our love and our change and our love through change in the world. And this trine, this is a flowing conversation, right? So it's deeply invested in us aligning are anchoring with change, aligning our safety and our love with change, rather than just maintaining and pulling back and holding tight to what was, to any old patterning, any old haunted houses, any old places where we are feeling a deep lack of love. We're being asked to play and explore and get creatively invested in how we are practically applying love in our internal systems as well as the external systems. So this is a really interesting energetic combo, I think, because I think so often we kind of have this paradigm, right? Just in general, as humans with minds that want to put things in logical containers and move through the world, we have keep everything the same. That's safety. That's anchoring. That's keeping me from, destruction, from any unknowns. And then we have the very irresponsible, often, it'll be the irresponsible or the uncertainty of change and of moving into new things. And this is partially the way our brains work, our nervous system works. This is also a function of culture. It gets really complicated, but I think we can dissolve that dichotomy a little bit here and have these working together, because so we're asking, what is love? What does love practically sound and look like to you when you're talking to yourself, when you're moving through your day, when you are in your life, right? What does love look like when you're in your family environment or in your culture? These are deep questions. And this isn't to say we need to have perfect self-love. I want to clarify here before we get into this. I'm not saying like if we have harsh things that we say to ourselves, because believe me, I definitely have a very harsh inner critic that wants to keep me safe and says a lot of things that I would say don't really fall in line with loving language, right? So this isn't about perfectionism in our loving, in our internal worlds. This is just about getting curious. And this is just about having the ability to kind of witness ourselves and notice where there is a feeling of lack of love. Because in this question, a couple of things are happening. One is, I think this full moon is going to help us illuminate what love is not. Which is, for me, love is not control. It's not force. It's not manipulation. It's not lying. And it's not an invasion of others, right? It's none of those things. And, in our world, often, control and manipulation are cloaked in languages of love. I'm doing this to protect this person. I'm doing this because I care, right? And so this is a question about, what is love not? And I think this can be really helpful even in just observing ourselves, where we say, well, I'm trying to take care of you and love you the best. So I'm trying to control you and force you into all these different situations, right? Like the way we talk to ourselves. It can really help us to illuminate where what seems to be loving, when we don't take a moment to analyze it and it's just our usual background program, we realize is part of our haunted house. It's part of a cultural narrative we've been fed. It's part of an old system of doing things that's just repeating over and over again. And I think this full moon helps us to see that. And rather than, judge that and be like, oh my gosh, I'm having unloving thoughts to myself or others or whatever, it's more of just this curiosity of like, oh, wow, yeah, for a long time I thought of this way of controlling myself, this way of making things happen was love, was self-care. But now I'm realizing it's that control and manipulation. So how do I want to move through the world? And this is the final part, and I think this is the important part of this full moon. Okay, we're getting illuminated what is not love, right? But then with Uranus in the North Node trining here, we are also being asked to invent and actively participate in the creation of what we want that internal system of love to be, what we want the movement and the mechanism of love and how it shows up to create safety and security for us, how it shows up to anchor us, how it shows up to center our energy, how it shows up to help us call back our energy to our home inside of ourselves so that we can move through the world with a sense of feeling secure in ourselves, of feeling anchored in ourselves, a feeling that our energy is ours to come back to, that we have that autonomy, and that we move through the world from that place. This is going to be, it's going to involve creative invention. It's not going to be about falling back on those old haunted houses and those old cultural templates. And I do think it's helpful when we have an illumination like this that helps us see what is not love. Because sometimes we just can't see it until we see it, right? And this is a full moon that is helping us to do that. So we can say, oh, I can stop doing that to myself, because that's not love. That's not a function of love. That's not a practical application of love at all. And I get to come up with the way that I would like to see that practical application of love show up in my internal world, in my thoughts, and also in the things that surround me. And getting really honest about this is so freeing and can really, really liberate a lot of energy from within. And I think this is also, like I said, it creates the space to get creative with the way that we want to anchor in and practically feel secure in our bodies. But I think this full moon is also going to ask for us, because Capricorn is a bit about the serious side of really committing to something. I think this full moon also illuminates for me the deep commitment that we're being asked to do when it comes to starting to develop really loving thoughts. This world right now, it's showing us a lot of the not love. I think in 2022, there's been some really big, bold displays of the lack of love. That will to power, where will to power is paramount, as Jung said, love will be lacking, right? We've seen some really big lack of love that parades as love, but is really control, manipulation, invasion, things like that, right? And so it's like, that's very jangling. We can boomerang around trying to be all these different modes and modalities of people that we think we need to be. But this full moon is asking us to come back to the anchoring and to really commit to the creative process of that. And a reminder too, Capricorn energy, I think, often gets aligned with the critical voice of the culture as an archetype. It gets aligned with the critical voice of culture, which is, that is frivolous, that is selfish, that is empty, that is childish, that has no value. And we can often put down our attempts to just softly open the door to how we want to anchor in and commit to love. But for me, this full moon is the voice of the loving energy that says it's so worth it to commit to just taking a few minutes and really developing a language of internal love, a language of centered, anchored, concrete love inside of our core, inside of our solar plexus, our heart, that then pours out into the world. It is worth those moments where we really commit to that. And I think that is the loving voice of an internal parent figure. That is the loving voice of deep, true anchoring and wisdom. And that is really essentially what is getting illuminated here with this full moon. And also, it is helping us, as full moons always do, to release the non-loving, to release the patterns, the repetitions that are based on something that has purported to be love, but is no longer feeling like love anymore. So this is I think, a really important full moon. It's one that, I almost didn't see coming when I sat down to sit with the energy. And then 2 cards came out. Knight of Cups, 6 of Pentacles. Very hopeful cards. Very loving cards. You know what these cards to me kind of speak to like a bigger process. Not the immediate process of this full moon right here, right this second, and how we're going to like transform everything overnight. These cards speak to me to something bigger that's going on. A rebalancing that is happening in the long run, right? 6 of Pentacles is about harmony and justice. Things that are taken unfairly and in dishonesty cannot be retained. They will rebalance. And the Knight of Cups is the dreamer. This is the most romantic energy, and we are in Cancer season after all. And the 6 of Cups is about remembering truth, love, and beauty. It's remembering the beauty of smelling the flowers, of writing beautiful poetry, of creating beautiful art. And I think, when I think about this full moon, so many of our beautiful lights right now, it might feel like it's the frivolous thing to do to create something beautiful or meaningful, or to take those few moments to reclaim your energy as your own, as your sovereign, autonomous self. But those are things that are really, really important and beautiful right now and have meaning and import to this whole process. Those are where love is showing up. And it sounds really cheesy. It sounds really kind of, I'm not just about to sit here talking about love and light and all of that, but if we don't reclaim our energy for ourselves right here, right now, if we don't let ourselves write the poetry and the beautiful things, and that can include expressing hard emotions, right? It doesn't exclude that. If we do that, what happens next? How are we available and here for what happens next, for the rebalancing that will happen? So these cards are visionary in the sense that they are asking for us to hold a vision of something beautiful and keep holding it and keep going back to it and keep holding it and keep returning to the Knight of Pentacles and the Justice of the Knight of Cups and the Justice of the Six of Pentacles as ways, as the lenses through which we can look at some of the processes going on in the world. Those are very hopeful cards. Those are very clear cards in that it's important right now that we open our hearts and let them shine really bright. I hope this all made sense. I had so many notes trying to kind of incorporate what I'm trying to say about anchoring and really committing via the Capricorn energy, as well as radicalizing and changing and stepping out of old haunted house patterns with Uranus in the North Node, and how we're doing that on an individual level as well as on a collective level this year. And this full moon is really illuminating that. So I'm feeling some big emotions about it. Definitely a little sensitive right now. And I will be offering up our activation for this full moon over on my Patreon. I love doing these. We do visualizations and I do kind of a walkthrough. So it's a way for you, and you can make it your own, to explore the full moon. So if you're looking for a little more guidance, a little way to activate that sense of true love inside of yourself, I would love to see you over there. It's an amazing community, and I'm so grateful for all of you who are already there with me. Oh my gosh, it's the best. It's the best. You can also find me on Instagram and on my website, so I'll leave all the links so you know where to connect with me. I will see you so soon. We are coming right up on Leo season already, the Leo new moon, monthly readings. So a lot is ahead for us here in this space. And for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, I am going to start really talking about how to move into these darker months in meaningful ways. And I'm so excited about what's to come in the months ahead. So I am looking forward to seeing you all here in the future, and have a beautiful full moon in Capricorn. I am just wishing all of us some peace and some integration at this time.